The title of our message this morning is simple. It is entitled, Will God Always Bless America? Now, we remember Tish's cherry story a long time after we forget the two history-making episodes in the life of George Washington. We misplace in our memory the details of Benjamin Franklin's statesmanship, but we recall his getting turned on by flying a kite in the pouring rain. Maybe best remembered in our current generation will not be our national heroes or important achievements, but something that's just outright ridiculous, such as punk rock, pet rocks, or Rocky and Bullwinkle. Yet I want us to now reflect back on the famous writing called the Declaration of Independence. I believe that few Americans living today comprehend the courage needed to sign this document. And not many of us can quote one line of it. Yet I do hope that you will remember this last sentence in the final paragraph. For the support of this declaration, with firm reliance on the protection of the divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. You might have recognized those impressive words, but they are not meaningful until you have the whole story. The famous building is now called Independence Hall. I had the privilege of standing on its very steps July 4, 1976 at America's bicentennial. Yet 200 years earlier in Philadelphia, it was called the Pennsylvania State House, when the best of men from the 13 colonies sat down to reason together. On June 11, 1776, a committee was adopted to draw up a declaration, and Thomas Jefferson, with the help of others, finished a draft in 17 days, and then it was signed by 56 men. Congress adopted it in July. It was a fortunate hour in the history of our young nation, a time when so much greatness was in the lives of men. These 56 were not wild-eyed, profane rabble-rousers. They were well-spoken men of means and education, the cream of the crop, the who's who in the 13 colonies. They had security, but they valued liberty more. They gave you and me a free and independent America. Now, some of us take these liberties for granted, but we should not. Remember, freedom is not free. Every 4th of July, spend a minute in silent thanks for these patriots on the price they paid. Patriotism is not a sin, and July 4th has more to it than picnics, baseball games, and fireworks. Now, over the years, these 57 lives have been embellished with layers of fancy fiction to make a better story. Now, it is true that 5 signers were captured by the British during the Revolutionary War, but none were tortured or died as prisoners. It is true that a number of the signers saw their homes used to sleep soldiers or to serve as headquarters for the officers, as well as property was vandalized by the British. Like many other Americans, possessions were subject to seizure, which it fell along the path of war waged on the North America continent. The need to forage for supplies in enemy territory had long been a part of warfare. So it was not uncommon for the British soldiers in the field to appropriate such material from private residents during the American Revolution. Now, what should we understand from all of this? The 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence did take a huge risk in placing their names beneath this pledge. They knew if they won this fight, the best that they could hope for or expect would be years of hardship in a struggling new nation. And if lost, to face a hangman's rope for treason, as England's King George III had denounced all rebels as traitors of the crown. But we should also not lose sight of the fact that many men and women other than the 56, some famous but most not, sacrificed much, including their lives to support the cause of liberty. Again, I don't know what your impression is of these 56 men who met that hot summer in Philadelphia. But they had a secure future for themselves, their children, and their children's children if they had only stayed home and tended their crops or minded their stores. Yet they signed a pledge and fulfilled it. The result, freedom was born for these United States of America. Now, we know of others too that paid the price during our lifetime. Some of us were around and knew people from World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Persian Gulf, as well as Afghanistan and Iraq. Whether in the forests of Ardennes, the beaches on Normandy, hills of Korea, jungles in Nam, and the deserts of Afghanistan or Iraq, American men and women facing death would declare America is worth dying for. They, in reality, have declared as our founding fathers, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. In 1859, Charles Dickens began his famous novel, A Tale of Two Cities with, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. These words, which describe the situation of Europe during Dickens' day, could easily portray our own period. In America, these are indeed the best and the worst of times. We are living in an age of amazing technological advancement, a time in which we travel in outer space and computers are doing work which never before was thought possible. Yet at the same time, ours is an age of confusion, uncertainty, and waste. Countless millions are without any firm conviction on which to build their daily life. We live in an age of a paradox. I mean the absolute unbelievable. We have collected more information in our lifetime than all other generations combined, and with this knowledge have developed nuclear warheads with enough destructive power to kill every man, woman, and child 1,000 times over. We know more, yet live less truth than any age in recorded history. We fly in the sky, travel under the ocean surface, and yet have never learned how to live on the green earth. We elevate Bonnie and Clyde to sainthood and have confined Peter, Paul, and Mary to a folk pop group. Sodom and Gomorrah, once buried alive with fire, is now being reconstructed wholeheartedly over all America. We have learned to transplant the heart rather than to convert it to common sense. We spend money we don't have to buy things we don't need, to keep up with people we don't even like. We pay $25,000 to purchase a car that weighs 4,000 pounds, moved by a 400 horsepower engine, to be hauled around one 200-pound person. Everything in the home is run with a switch except the children. We will build $1 million gym so our children can go and have a proper exercise, and then we drive them to school 4 blocks away. We rent expensive church buildings, then only use them 5 hours a week. But it does have the highest steeple in town. Surely this will mean something in the judgment. We act like blind men playing with matches in a room full of gunpowder. You cannot tell me that the citizens of this nation is not schizo. We are like the breakfast cereal when the fruit and the nuts are removed. All you are left with is a bunch of dried up flakes. In the early 1800s, the noted French political thinker and historian Alexis de Tocqueville, he came to America to seek the secrets of her greatness. And this is what he wrote. I sought for the greatness and the genius of America in her harbors and rivers, and it was not there. I found it not in her fields or forests, neither found it in her mines or factories. I found it not in her fleece or commerce. I found it not in her public school systems or institutions of learning. I did not find it in her Congress or great tribunes. It was only when I entered her churches and heard her messages of righteousness did I understand the secret of her greatness and power. Then he added, America is great because America is good. If America ever ceases to be good, America will cease to be good. Brethren, when America is no longer morally upright, she will stop being a pillar of strength. Psalms 11 verse 3, if the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? No nation can survive when the fruit of righteousness dies out. If any good that is left is removed, what then can we expect for our future? Psalms 9, verse 17. The wicked will return to Sheol, that is the netherworld, even all nations who forget God. The wicked and all evil societies that forgot or forget God, they crumble to the dust. Someone has said the highways of history are covered with the wreckage of nations that forgot God. Now, as a nation, we are now some 200 plus years old, and we find that the most ravaging enemies are not some foreign armies pressing against our border, but our own citizens who profane the Bible and reject God's standard of morals. A nation is usually defeated from within before it fell to an enemy from without. The 1778 or 1788 book, The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire by Edward Gibbons, sets forth several basic reasons why that great civilization withered and died. Yet unknowingly to Gibbons, remember this was written over 200 years ago, the present trends in America can be compared to the destruction of ancient Rome, which are building of great armaments, maintaining an army to defend the border of the empire from barbarian attacks, which was a constant drain on the government. The decay of the individual responsibility, saying, don't draft me. Frustrated Romans lost their desire to defend the empire. They began hiring soldiers among the unemployed city mobs, or even worse, from foreign countries. They lost their discipline. They started complaining about the weight of their armor. In other words, they had grown soft. Most think our military is the best in the world. It might be more accurate to say that we are the best equipped and fed. I read one sign of the times is the relaxing of conditions for new military recruits undergoing basic training as being allowed to have 8.5 hours of sleep. During my basic, we weren't guaranteed 6 or 7 hours. And in airborne school, not given or promised any sleep. Now, we did have 3-minute cat naps from leaving the C-130 until our boots hit solid ground. Raising taxes for military spending and using public money for free bread, which was welfare, or the services referred to as games and amusement for the populace, frequently in turn led again to increased inflation. Rich became richer, poor poorer, and the middle class diminished. Those unable to pay rent were made homeless and forced to live in a crime-infested streets. These inner cities brought about urban decay. Part of this was contributed to unemployment. The empire farming was done on large estates by wealthy men who used slave labor. The small farmer who had to pay workmen could not produce goods cheaply or compete with these low prices, therefore lost or sold their farms. Small businesses bellied up to the larger ones. So cities were filled with unemployed people that became a burden as the crime rate continually increased. Rome ended up having inferior technology. Their scientific achievements were limited mostly entirely to engineering, the building of roads, bridges, and aqueducts, and the organization of public services. The reason was they were no longer conquering other civilizations and adapting their technology. I remember in my youth, we used to laugh at anything that was stamped made in Japan. Not anymore. Now we cannot afford anything stamped made in the U.S. of A. Public games of the Colosseums and the surrounding arenas bathed in gore and blood was the national pastime sport of their period. The more violence, the bigger the crowds and ticket sales. Today's sports and fans are becoming more excited, brutal, and immoral. You cannot win the Stanley Cup or the World Series without burning a few buildings and cars in your own home team's town. The decline in morals and values. During the Pax Roma, there were 32,000 prostitutes in the city of Rome. Also, you had political corruption. Beginning in 186 AD, the practice of selling the throne to the highest bidder. And for the next 100 years, Rome had 37 different emperors, 25 whom were removed from office by assassination. The undermining of the dignity and the sanctity of the home, which is the basis of human society. Outwardly, we have more young people attending college than ever before. We are overwhelmed by the sheer number of books being published. Yet underneath this upper crust of high culture, there simmers a less appetizing stew. Few children read for pure enjoyment. It is just to fulfill a school assignment. Endless gaming, chatting, and chilling on social medias. Boys would rather spend their time on brutalizing video games, and girls no longer play with dolls. They are the dolls, dressed according to the dictates of the fashion industry. The decay of religion, no meaning, just ritualism, faith fading into mere form, loss of power to guide the people, just going through the motions, not in touch with the sacredness of life or its purpose. Now, I'm not a prophet, but Super Bowl Sunday may well end up becoming our #1 religious holiday. Now, can any of these ancient Roman practices be describing America today? The often heard warning, history repeats itself, has a special truth for us. Did you know that the worst thing about history repeating itself is that the price keeps going up each time? Someone has said those who refuse to learn from the past are condemned to repeat. In the name of common sense, let us learn so as not to have to repeat. About the time our original 13 colonies had adopted their new constitution, we were now called states, in 1787, Alexander Tyler, a Scottish history professor at the University of Edinburgh, had this to say about the fall of the Athenian Republic some 2,000 years prior. Here's what he mentions. A democracy is always temporary in nature. It simply cannot exist as a permanent form of government. A democracy will continue to exist up until the time that voters discover that they can vote for themselves generous gifts from the public treasury. From that moment on, the majority always votes for candidates who promise the most benefits from the public treasury, with the result that every democracy will finally collapse due to a loose fiscal policy, which will always be followed by a dictatorship. The average age of the world's greatest civilizations from the beginning of history has been around 200 years. During those 200 years, these nations always progress through the following sequence: from bondage to spiritual faith, from spiritual faith to great courage, from great courage to liberty, from liberty to abundance, from abundance to complacency, from complacency to apathy, from apathy to dependence, from dependence back to bondage. A professor by the name of Joseph Olson of Hamline University School of Law in St. Paul, Minnesota, believes the United States is now somewhere between complacency and apathy, the apathy phase of what Professor Tyler's definition of democracy is. And he also mentions that some 40% of our nation's population have already reached the governmental dependency phase. Olson believes if our government officials grant amnesty and citizenship to the millions of criminal invaders called illegals and they vote, Olson says, then goodbye, America. Now, this cycle can be avoided, but it depends on us and our relationship to God. Woodrow Wilson, the 20th president, said, unless our civilization is redeemed spiritually, it cannot endure materially. At the voting polls. Don't select some candidate that promises you a state dinner and a full tank of gas at the end of a bright rainbow. You choose for president the one who lifts up God and His Word. Wholesome morals in America will take care of our national budget problems. In 1964, Dr. Benjamin E. Mays, then president of Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia, made a statement. We have more educated people than at any time in history. We have more people with college degrees, yet our humanity is a diseased humanity. It isn't knowledge we need. Knowledge we have. Humanity is in need of something spiritual. God declares, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Hosea 4, verse 6. The lack being described here is not in material or scientific knowledge, but an absence of spiritual understanding in true values like virtue and morals. It is a lack of knowledge of God and His ways as our only standard of life. Now, this is the type of understanding that the Jewish nation had discarded. Continuing in the last part of verse 6. Because you have rejected knowledge, I also will reject you from being my priest. Since you have forgotten the law of your God, I also will forget your children. If America does not improve her relationship with God, seek after spiritual knowledge, then we will slither back from which we came, bondage. And for all of the 56 scientists and others who died, it will have all been in vain. George Washington, in his farewell speech, delivered in the form of a letter to all the newspapers in 1796, exhorts us to avert the course that has hitherto marked the destiny of nations. All nations of an earlier period have risen and fallen by 5 well-defined, shortened steps: freedom, wealth, glory, corruption, barbarity. The history of past nations has not deviated from this pattern, yet America is spurning the warning of her illustrious first president in running the same course as the others. If we do not wake up and see the handwriting on the wall, barbarianism will be our final destiny. America desperately needs to restore the principles of her earlier times. Our national need is beautifully stated in the words of Proverbs 22, verse 28. Do not move the ancient boundary which your fathers have set. America must restore the ancient landmark, the conservative Bible principles that are quickly being buried beneath the debris of a corrupt and immoral liberal society. I firmly believe America has been abundantly blessed because God has been honored, has been revered by the citizens of this great land. Our founding fathers as a whole were a God-fearing group, among whom the Bible was deeply respected. The Declaration of Independence embraces biblical thoughts. Early American statesmen were not politicians. They quoted scriptures in abundance in their public prayers and speeches. It was not merely tolerated or used to get votes, but it was sought after and relied upon from their hearts. Bill Clinton in his first inaugural address, quoted from 1 Corinthians. That's the New Testament. But I cannot remember any more afterwards. I never heard Obama lift up the inspired Holy Word Bible of God, but only gave praise for the man-made writing called the Koran. In 1865, we began inscribing on our coins, "In God we trust." At that time, we meant it was God and not the currency that we placed our trust in. But modern trends and subversive influences now eat at us like a deadly cancer to destroy the values of our founding fathers. Now, is our circumstance hopeless? Are we the greatest, most powerful nation on earth, destined to crumble and to die as ancient Athens or Rome and the countless other nations before and since? I don't believe so. If we will face the reality of our present situation and do something about it. Our need is a national restoration movement to restore the ancient landmark of God's Word. Do you know what America needs today? We need a leader like Moses, who refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, but was willing to take a stand for God, denying fame and fortune, who would go up against anyone else and would not and could not be bought by the opposition. We need a food administrator like Joseph, who knew God and had the answer to famine. No work, no food, no free bread. We need mothers like Hannah, who prayed for God, that God would give her a child, that she might present that child to God. Instead of some women, when given the gift of life, had that infant cut out from their womb. We don't want to be others like other women who are delinquent mothers with delinquent children who don't know who the delinquent daddy is. We need to have young people like Sam, who would talk to God in the night hours, then rely and obey God's voice. We need a God like Israel instead of the dollar God, the entertainment God, the pleasure God, or the ever-popular self or me God. We are now sadly living in a century when our citizens, being deceived, boast that they have outgrown God's guidance and a need for a good conscience. This direction is not progress, though it has always been labeled as such. I will tell you what this new but twisted direction is. It is a collision course with catastrophe. Daniel Webster, a senator and a secretary of state who died in 1852, during the days of our infancy wrote this: "If we abide by the principles taught in the Bible, our country will go on prospering. But if we in our prosperity neglect its instruction and authority, no man can tell how sudden a catastrophe may overwhelm us and bury our glory in profound obscurity. As a people, we must return to God. Jesus says in Matthew 7, starting at verse 24, "Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and acts upon them may be compared to a wise man who built his house upon the rock. And the rains descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and burst against the house. And yet it did not fall, for it had been founded upon the rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not act upon them will be like a foolish man who built his house upon the sand. And the rains descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and burst against the house, and it fell, and great was its fall." The Word of God as the foundation can weather any storm aimed at destroying our nation. It can provide us with a place of safe shelter, and it must never be abandoned if we are to stand straight and strong. The question again is, will America stand? The answer to that lies in whether or not the Lord rules over our nation's capital and is in the hearts of her citizens. Psalms 33, verse 12. Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord, the people whom he has chosen for his own inheritance. It is only when America strives to do God's will and meets his approval that we will have any promise of peace and prosperity. All our armaments and preparedness cannot safeguard this nation. Our national security is not dependent upon sophisticated spy systems and a stockpile of nuclear weapons. It is not the woodpeckers outside that will bring us down, but the termites within. We need the blessings of God, and we will have those blessings only when we have shown the proper respect due God Almighty. This we do by obedience to his will. Psalms 14, verse 30, or Proverbs 14, verse 34. Righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a disgrace to any people. The sinful behavior by national leaders reflects the moral decay of the entire nation, because we elect our wants and not our needs. Now the Lord's promise is very clear. If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their evil ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. 2 Chronicles 7, verse 14. America must wake up to her spiritual obligation if this nation is to survive. Psalms 81, verse 13. Oh, that my people would listen to me, would walk in my ways. Again, Daniel Webster, there is no solid basis for civilization but in the Word of God. Now we gather hope and strength by recalling Abraham's discussion with Job over the future of Sodom and Gomorrah. God was willing to save those ancient cities if only 10 righteous people could be found within. A great contribution we can make to the future of our society is to be the 10 righteous and to use our godly influence to spread only New Testament Christianity. One who obeys the New Testament gospel not only saves his soul from eternal hell, but will also help keep America clean, so to speak, by living a righteous life. In 1918, Ivy Berlin wrote what I believe stands right up there with our national anthem, which is, we know, the Star-Spangled Banner. Now I remember in elementary school, each morning, we would stand up, we would place our hand over our heart, and we would face the flag of stars and stripes. Then we would recite the Pledge of Allegiance. And sometimes we would sing this beautiful song. God bless America, the land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the lights from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. If God is to bless America, then we must start with us, living in harmony with the will of God. The question is, are we? Does your life reflect the moral principles that are written on the pages of the New Testament? If not, then why not? Don't allow anything to hinder you from coming to the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. Believe, repent, and be water immersed for the washing away, the forgiveness of your sins. Everything is ready. So why not come right now and make heaven your home, sweet home?